in. It's good to see you. There's room in the front. Grab a chair. Oh, you all look happy this morning. Good morning. Well, let's get our comments going, and then we got a show for you. Come on, technology. You can do it. Oh, it's good to see all you happy people coming in. All right, there we go. You should not take a minute to open a file. That's what I say. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams, and it's the best time you've ever had. But if you'd like to take a chance on elevating your experience to levels that no one can understand with their tiny, shiny human beings, all you need for that is a copper mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice, or a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip. That's right. And it happens now. Go. Sublime. Well, RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth were kicking off their, I guess they're going to do a fitness tour. I don't know where they're going to go, but the two of them are super fit. And they've got some kind of a challenge where you do 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, and you try to get it under 5 minutes. Do you think you could do that? 100 push-ups? I don't know. I think it might take me all day to do 100 push-ups. 5 minutes? That's pretty impressive. So 71-year-old RFK Jr. was showing the kids how to be fit. Quite impressive. So I like that. I feel like it's not since... When was the last time the federal government had a fitness thing? Was it... Trump didn't do it last time, right? And I don't think Biden did it. So it's been a while. Well, according to the Epoch Times, more than 300 people have been arrested so far in Washington, D.C., as the federal crackdown on crime continues. 300 arrests. Doesn't that feel like a lot? I realize that Washington, D.C. is a pretty big city, but if you can arrest 300 people without trying that hard, now, did they go to their homes because they knew that they should arrest them for something that they knew about? Or did they actually observe 300 crimes in action? Don't you wonder which one it is? Did they just walk around and say, well, there's another one. Well, pull them in. Well, there's another one. Don't really know. But 300 feels like a lot. So good job on that. I would say also it seems like the Democrats have given up on the idea that they can make anything of this. I feel like the public really, really likes a reduction in crime, as in everybody likes it, as in even the Democrats. Everybody seems to like less crime. Well, here's a data point. I'm not sure I believe it. There's a study published in Nature Mental Health that said that globally, suicide rates have fallen nearly 30% since the 90s. Do you believe that? Suicide rates are down 30% globally. And apparently it's, not just in a few places that are making the difference. There's some kind of universal force that has greatly reduced suicide. Now, what would that be? I have my hypothesis. Since the change comes from 1990, I feel like it's the internet. Because one of the things that would cause you to take your own life, besides being in pain, would be if you didn't have anything going on and you had no connections in the world and you didn't have any source of dopamine. But as long as you have your phone and the internet, you can have some kind of connection. You could play a video game and chat with all the gamers. You could flirt with somebody. You could use a dating app. You could use social media. And you would at least feel they were connected to the real world. So that's my guess. Social media reduced people taking their own life. Just a guess. Well, you may have seen that MSNBC is changing its name. And boy, are they getting mocked. Their new name will be, and there's a space after one letter there, MS space now. So it's my source for news, opinion, and world. Okay, first of all, that's stupid. My source for news, opinion, and world. Do you need to get a gallon of world? I know what it means to get news, and I know what it means to consume someone's opinion. What does it mean to get some world? Man, I wouldn't mind getting some world right now. Wait, did I just make it dirty? It sounds totally dirty when you say it, if you say it that way. Hey, you wouldn't mind giving me a little world, would you? Yeah, it's disgusting. Anyway, so the first two letters, MS, this stands for my source. I don't know why that has to have a space between that and the rest of the letters. Doesn't make any sense to me. But it looks like Ms. Now, MS as in Ms. Apparently, they're not going to have a Mr. Now. So it's just going to be a women-run organization, Ms. Now. And everything I saw about it was people mocking the new logo and the new name. And everybody's wondering, I wonder how much they paid to have somebody come up with the worst idea that any of us have ever seen. Now, if I could soften it a little bit, I will give you an observation that I've made because I've been involved in designing logos and catchphrases and stuff for most of my career. A lot of licensed stuff needs to have some kind of catchy name, and so over the Dilbert career, I've had to work with lots of people on various logos for licensed materials and stuff like that. And one of the things I learned is that there are no two people in the world who like the same logo or the same name. It's impossible. You can't find two people who will like the same logo or the same new name for a company. Just don't find it. You can get one person to like it, the person who suggests it, and then everybody else will be like, no, that's not working. But here's an exercise that I recommend to all of you. Drive down the street and look at anybody's logo and anybody's phrase, if they have some kind of marketing phrase, and ask yourself if that had not already existed and you were in a meeting and somebody pitched it, would you have said, oh, yeah, that's a good one? And you will find that even the most famous and successful logos, you look at them and you go, oh, I would not have greenlit that. So nobody's ever happy with logos and name changes. Well, according to The Verge, there's a company called Grammarly that has now released 9 different AI apps for various writing-related things. But here are a few of them. Let's see. They've got one that can provide feedback about what your instructor in college would like in your writing, so that it can actually advise you how to write in a way that your specific instructor is going to like and give you an A. That's a pretty good app if it works. They also have, they have a plagiarism checker to make sure that you didn't steal something. And they have an AI detector, so they can tell, this would be more like for the teacher, they can tell if AI wrote your material. So that's one. And then they've got AI agents to improve your writing, including the likely reader reaction to it. They've got a proofreader agent that provides inline writing suggestions. They've got a paraphrase agent that adjusts writing to suit specific tones, audiences, and styles. And they've got one for attribution. So do you recognize the weak link in that process? So you got a human being, and they use apps to make sure that they've written something correctly. Doesn't it feel to you like the human being is the problem here? And if you just get rid of the human being entirely, then you'd have something. but the amount that the human does is just getting smaller and smaller. So what happens when people stop going to college or listening or figuring out how to write because they don't have to, because AI is doing all the work for them? I feel like we're reaching a place where a whole bunch of people are going to decide that they don't even need to learn to read. Well, I guess they'd have to read well enough to use the app, but that's about it. All right. So let's check in on Democrats, see what ridiculous things they're doing. Democrat Representative LaMonica McIver. She claims that his use of the phrase Liberation Day is secret code for white power. Liberation Day is secret code for white power. So this is one of your best Democrats here. According to Fox News, the New Yorker writer who had recently had trashed Sydney Sweeney was discovered to have some anti-white posts on social media that included, quote, "I hate white men," and made attacks on something called white capitalism. Okay, there's another Democrat. And then Representative Ayanna Presley, according to Breitbart News, she went on a rant about how Democrats should not become more moderate to restore their image. She wants them to fight harder. And she said, Democrats were so busy, so focused on proving that we were the adults in the room, when we forgot to demonstrate that we're the fighters in the room. So that's a Democrat leader's take on what Democrats did wrong. They were trying too hard to be the adults in the room. Does that seem like the problem? Maybe it has something more to do with running Kamala Harris as your candidate. Was she the adult in the room? The drunken idiot? That was the adult in the room? Yeah, that's what it was. So I'm loving watching Democrats have no idea what they did wrong or what to do later to change it. Absolutely no idea. They don't talk about the quality of their candidates. They don't talk about their policies. They don't talk about their ideas. They literally think that if they fought harder, whatever that is, fought harder, that everything will turn around. Now, as long as that's what they think, there isn't really much chance they're going to succeed because they're so far from the actual active solution. Why is it that Trump is doing so well? It's because he's picking policies and also people to implement them who are excellent and very popular. It's not really some kind of weird mystery. If Democrats simply did what Republicans are doing, pick popular things and promote them and get the right people hired to implement, if you just did that, I believe that your reputation would be repaired quite quickly. Well, I've got an observation that I've been working on that might get me double canceled, but I'm going to trot it out. I want to see if it resonates with you. So would you agree that Democrats and Republicans have a different approach to Black America. I think you'd all agree with that, right? But my observation is that Democrats treat Black Americans like pets. And what I mean by that is there's this horrible assumption that in order for Black Americans to succeed, it is necessary for white Americans to act differently. And there's no sense that Black Americans could just do their own thing like everybody else in the world. Why are they the only group that can't succeed unless white people do something differently? And Republicans, I believe, say everybody can succeed. You just have to do the things that successful people do. How about staying out of jail? How about paying attention in school or learning a trade and making sure that you're a productive, valuable member of society? That works pretty much every time. Every time. So I find myself almost revolted when I see Democrats treating Black Americans like it's the only group that can't succeed without the white people doing something different. And my opinion. What I found out when I got canceled is that Black Americans did not want any advice from white Americans. If we were going to invest, they would certainly talk about that, if there's money involved. But they weren't looking for our good ideas. And I feel like I would agree with them. Say, oh, how about I just shut up and leave you alone? How about I just stay out of it? Because you really don't need me. When I imagine that other people need me to succeed, that's not really fair, is it? So anyway, that's my take, is that you shouldn't treat other people as pets. You should assume that if they do the right things, they'll get the right outcomes like everybody else. Well, the Democrat Party continues to collapse. So as you know, they have no policies that anybody cares about, and they have no leaders that are identifiable as leaders, but they also don't have much money. So apparently the Republicans, the RNC has raised 5 times more money than the DNC, according to Newsmax. And it's $80 million compared to 15. So Democrats, they literally don't have anything. So they've got a bad reputation. They've got no ideas. They have no leaders. And now they have no money. That is what a collapse looks like. That's as collapsy as you can get. There's nothing left. Anyway, well, Doge is claiming that there's savings that they've already arranged for are going to be more than 200 billion. That's just so far. So that would be $1,300 per taxpayer. Really? Huh. So the Epoch Times is reporting on that. Now, I would remind you that whenever you're looking at this big data stuff, especially if money is involved, I'm not sure you can believe any of it. So I'm not going to say that because I love Doge, which I do, and I think that they're all there for the right reason, which I do, and they're all super qualified and capable, which they are, that's still not enough to assume that any number they produce is going to be reliable. That's a whole different deal. Nobody really can produce reliable numbers. It's almost not even a thing. But since Doge is almost certainly directionally valuable, as long as they're working on it and chewing away and canceling contracts, I'm pretty sure it's working in the right direction. So I don't need the exact numbers for that. Well, according to Newsmax, Representative Comer is going to be in Congress talking to the DOJ is going to start sharing the Epstein files with Congress. That would be Comer's oversight group. And what do you expect from that? Does anybody expect that we're going to have any new great revelations because Congress is going to get some more Epstein files? I feel like they had some sense which of their files were useful and would make a difference and which weren't. I feel like it might be all we're going to see now is the worthless files, and we'll just be pouring through them and saying, where's the good stuff? And there just won't be any good stuff. We did hear that Bill Barr apparently has said that Trump was not implicated in the Epstein files. Now, he would have seen the Epstein files, so he would know. And he was not exactly Trump's best friend, although often they were on the same side and the same team. But I kind of believe him. If Bill Barr says the files don't implicate Trump whatsoever, I kind of believe that. And he also points out the obvious, that if it did, that would already be leaked because the Democrats had access to the same thing he had access to. And so that would be cool. I saw Mario Nawful reporting on something coming out of the Growth Forge AI, that there's this immunologist, Daria Unutsmas. Anyway, he claims that if you survive the next 10 years, that you could gain an additional 50 years of life, because in the next 10 years, the AI and all would figure out how to solve all the big problems. What do you think about that? I feel like that would be a really, really big problem. The only thing worse than not having enough babies is having a bunch of old people who refuse to die because they're going to use up all the resources, but they're not going to be working for the most part. So this feels like really bad news, but I'm not buying it. Yeah, bookish girl, I agree with you. I'm not believing it. How long have we been hearing that? That if you could survive just 10 more years, you might never die. I think I've been hearing that for 50 years. Meanwhile, the Texas Democrats who went rogue and left the state so that they wouldn't have to vote on the gerrymandering proposal in Texas, they have returned. And did they gain anything? And once again, we see that they didn't have any leaders, because you can't name anybody who was associated with it, right? There's no leader. And they didn't have any ideas other than running away. That's not really an idea. And the only thing they got out of it was the theater. The fact that they put on a little play, a little skit, and then the news covered it, and then they did little social media hits. It was pure theater. But it wasn't even useful theater, because lots of times, especially when Trump does it, the theater is functional, like it's accomplishing something or it's drawing attention to something. What good did this do? Didn't it just make the Democrats look like losers? And maybe it made the fight bigger, but it kind of looks like the Republicans had the better hand, because there are more Republican states that have not yet completely gerrymandered than there were Democrat states. So they're not going to win in the long run. They didn't win anything in the short run. And the people who had to go to work every day said to themselves, aren't we paying them? I think we're paying them to show up. Maybe they should show up. So that was a big fail for Democrats. I saw on Fox News, Stephen Miller was estimating that in addition to the undercounting of the census between blue states and red, the 2020 census inclusion of illegal aliens gave Democrats 20 to 30 extra seats in Congress. Now, you could debate whether that was what the Constitution intended, but whether it intended it or not, it was a 20 to 30 seat difference. So if that goes away, It's going to be tough to dislodge the Republicans from power. I saw a post by Stephen A. Smith, who said that all of the recent Russian aggression came because of 3 Democrat presidents. Did you ever think about that? I've never thought about this, but here's what Stephen A. Smith points out. He said, we ain't going to act like Trump caused this now. It's Democrats in office. He said it was Biden in office when Putin moved into Ukraine. So that's on Biden. It was Obama who was in charge when Russia invaded Crimea. So that's another Democrat. And he points out that Clinton was in office when they made a deal to disarm Ukraine. So Clinton disarms Ukraine, and then Obama's in charge when Crimea is lost, and then Biden's in charge when the rest of the country is under attack. Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine the Republicans wouldn't have done a better job. Now, one of the things that I'm loving is that Trump says over and over again, the war would have never happened if I'd been president. Now, I don't know that you could prove that, but it's a claim that is reasonable enough that if you hear it enough, you're going to think it's true. And he certainly says it enough. But now you're hearing other people repeating it. It's now becoming more common sense that if Trump had been in charge, it wouldn't have happened. And that's what the Stephen A. Smith post does. It kind of just turns it into, well, I mean, you could look for yourself. Common sense. When the Democrats are in charge, Putin gets aggressive because he knows there's a difference between the Republicans in charge and the Democrats, especially Trump. Well, let's speak about Ukraine. As you know, there were 7 major leaders of the European countries, and that included NATO plus the European Union. So they all showed up at the White House along with Zelensky. Now, the important things are that Zelensky wore a suit, but a weird-looking suit with no necktie. But still, it made Trump happy that he had put some effort into it. And here's one of the persuasion tips about Trump that I've told you before, but the more examples you see, the more it'll stick. Trump is the expert at making the biggest difference between making him happy and making him not happy. So when Zelensky didn't wear the right clothes the last time he visited, Trump made sure that he acted really unhappy. And then when Zelensky wears, respectful, nice suit, Trump treats him well and laughs and says, yeah, you look great. You look amazing. So he doesn't just say, all right, well, that's better. He makes this really big gap between making him happy, wearing a nice suit, versus not making him happy. So that is persuasion lesson 1. The biggest gap between making him happy and not making him happy. And he does that consistently. Does it really well. Better than I've ever seen, really, for a leader. But the question is, was any progress made? Well, I don't know if you'd call it progress, but some things happened. One is that Ukraine apparently is signing up to buy $100 billion worth of weapons from the U.S. that would be paid for by Europe, I guess. And if that kept up, the U.S. would very quickly make up all the money that is spent so far in Ukraine. It wouldn't take long. Now, of course, it wouldn't, the weapons makers are not the taxpayers, but at least it'd be coming back to the homeland. So that's good. And a lot of that, I guess half of that is for drones, $50 billion for drone production. Wow. That's a lot. There is a report that Putin has agreed that the United States could be part of a peace settlement or security guarantee. Now, I'm not sure that Putin has really agreed to that, or maybe there's some details we don't know about that. But um, would Putin really agree to a NATO like or a NATO ish situation when his biggest problem is he doesn't want NATO there? Oh, no, as long as you don't call it NATO and they don't pay any dues, oh, that's fine. So I'm having trouble believing that Putin would really agree to Americans having such a presence there that they were the security guarantee. Now, that doesn't mean that we would have troops on the ground, but it does mean that we would commit to respond if Russia went deeper into Ukraine. So, do you believe that Putin has said yes to that? That'd be a weird change. I'm going to say I'm skeptical that Putin's okay with that. We'll see. And I would still say that the best way to resolve the territories that are in dispute is with a referendum. But I'm going to add a little nuance to that. You don't have to have the referendum done right away. Suppose you said, all right, Russia, we're going to have a referendum, and then the people who live in these disputed territories, only the residents will get to decide if Russia or Ukraine owns them. But, and then you say, but we don't have the right situation to do the referendum because there's too much, war-torn problems there. So we're definitely going to do a referendum, but we're going to plan it for a year from now. So we can stop fighting right away, and then later, separately, we will very peacefully decide through a referendum where this land goes. But it doesn't have to be right away. Now, what is Russia going to do? Are they going to say, no, if the residents want to go to Ukraine, we're not going to let them? Well, that would not be consistent with how they tried to frame their involvement. They try to frame it like they're saving the residents. But it would allow us to do an end to the war, even if that referendum never happened, and it just kept getting pushed down the path. The other problem that Zelensky says is that the Ukrainian constitution doesn't allow him to trade land for peace. But it seems like that would be easy to get around. And the way to get around it would be to say, it's no longer your territory. It would be one thing if he gave away land that he owned, but he doesn't own that land. You can't give away something that somebody already has. So I feel like they could get around that constitution thing by saying, all right, we already lost that land, so it's not ours to give away or not give away. It's already gone. And then you go from there. So I feel like the constitutional thing, you could just define it away, basically. Trump says, according to Just the News, that the Russia-Ukraine war, if he can get it solved, is the last conflict he needs to resolve. Do you see the beauty of that statement? It's the last conflict he needs to resolve. The beauty of that is that he's making you think past the sale. The sale is whether or not he can get it done. But he's already made you think about what it's like to have them all done. It's perfect technique. He also uses repetition. He just keeps saying, oh yeah, I think we can get this done. We got to get this done. We got to stop killing. We got to get it done. Repetition really matters for persuasion. So he's got that right. So he's got the repetition, and he's making us think past the ending of it. That's all good. But here's the best part. Remember I always told you that reality follows the best story? The best story. So if you're watching a big, let's say, Super Bowl, and there are two quarterbacks that are famous, one of them often has a better story. So it might be somebody, for example, who had been fired by the very team that they end up playing in the Super Bowl. Now, if that quarterback wins after being fired by the team that they're playing, well, that's a better story. So it's more likely that that quarterback will win because it would make a better story. Do you know what would make a great story with the ending of the Ukraine war? The great story would be that Trump came in office and ended all war everywhere on the planet. That's the best story. You can't get a better story. Now, given the power of that story, and knowing that, wars all have to end, eventually they have to end, that is a really strong base because other people are going to have the same feeling. Wow, this is the last one he has to solve, and then he solved all wars on Earth. There must be other wars I don't know about. There's always a bunch of little ones going on. But it would make the best story if this president who got shot in the ear, was impeached twice as 34 felony counts, and was down and out, but came back against all odds. And he didn't just come back, he ended all war on Earth. Is there a better story than that? No, there's not. There's nothing that would be a better story than that. So, if I had to predict, I don't think it'll happen soon necessarily, but yeah, he'll get it done. I guess Trump was caught on a hot mic talking to Macron, and he said, quote, talking about Putin, he says, "I think he wants to make a deal for me." You understand that? As crazy as it sounds. Then Macron was just diplomatic, and he said, yeah, any deal would be great news. But what about that framing? Trump says that Putin wants to do it for him, and that part of Putin's motivation might be to get this done for Trump. Does that sound real? I do believe Putin might have said something like that because that would be good persuasion too, and he would know it would work on Trump. But I also think that another way to look at that is that Putin knows that if he does something for Trump, Trump is going to respond in kind. So I do believe that Putin wants to get it done under the Trump administration. Because if he can do that, then he's got something that Trump will say, all right, you did that for me. You didn't have to do it the way you did it, but you did it for me. Now, when I'm negotiating these sanctions and stuff like that, well, maybe I owe you one. So I think it's more about Putin knowing that he wants to have the president of the United States owe him one. So in that sense, he might be doing it for Trump. Let's see. I guess Trump and Zelensky had some joking around in the Oval Office. Not the Oval Office, but afterwards when they sit in those two chairs awkwardly. And Zelensky, as you know, canceled the Ukrainian elections because he was in the middle of a war. And Trump joked that he might follow Zelensky's lead and cancel the 2028 election. Now, I can't believe that Trump keeps doing this because he's just poking the Democrats, and it's wild to watch. I wouldn't recommend it, and I definitely wouldn't recommend any of you copy this technique, but Trump might be the only person in the world who could joke about this and just get away with it. If it makes them talk about this instead of other things, well, it's probably to his advantage. So he just loves poking that bear. Do you remember when all the smart people were saying that the other countries don't respect Trump in the first term especially? You remember that? And even if you liked Trump, you might have said to yourself, well, I have to admit, those other countries don't seem to be respecting him. They should, but I don't think they are. Well, what do you think now? Now that you got all of Europe to come over on short notice, you've got Putin taking his phone calls and coming to Alaska, and he's working on arguably the most important topic, and he'll probably get it done eventually, maybe not right away. But when you saw the photos of the Oval Office with all the European leaders in there and Zelensky and Trump's behind his desk and all the rest look like visitors who are in their chairs around the room, it's hard to imagine that the rest of the world has a negative opinion of him. I don't think they do. I think they're just going to pay their tariffs and hope he can end all war. Anyway, and according to the Finland president, he said that in the past 2 weeks, we've had more progress toward ending this war than in the past 3.5 years. Now, I would debate whether there's progress, because the only thing that matters is who gets what land, and that's nowhere near settled. So the fact that it's not settled and it doesn't look like it will be, I'm not really sure there's any progress. But if they all feel like there's progress, this adds to that feeling that it's inevitable. What you would want is for Putin to feel that ending the war is inevitable and that there's progress toward making it happen. Because just putting him in that frame of mind is going to get him a lot closer to changing his mind if he needs to on any land. Same with Zelensky. So I guess the plan is that Zelensky and Putin will meet, and if that goes well, then Trump will meet with the two of them as a trilateral. I don't know where, I guess that leaves out the European leaders, but maybe they won't mind. I don't know. So that's coming. Trilateral. You're going to hear that word a lot. Trilateral. Well, Hamas has accepted a Gaza ceasefire proposal from a bunch of Arab mediators. So that's good news, right? No, because there's no chance that Israel's going to accept it. So Israel is not thinking about a ceasefire. They're thinking about relocating hundreds of thousands of people and controlling the 25% of Gaza that they have not yet completely controlled. So their take is that we want all the hostages back, but we're not going to do this ceasefire thing anymore. That's what it looks like. It looks like Israel's just decided they're going to end this, even at the expense of their hostages. They won't say that out loud, of course. But it does look to me like they're not going to save hostages if it would slow them down from completely depopulating and having a commanding control of Gaza forever. So I think the larger, I'm not in their heads, so I can't read their minds, but it does look like the larger goal is a complete control of Gaza, even if it's not the ideal situation for getting back hostages. But anyway, I wouldn't expect anything to happen from that. Well, the State Department has reportedly revoked 6,000 foreign student visas because these foreign students were accused, I'm reading this in Red State, accused of various crimes. So some of it is overstaying, just staying longer than their visa. But there are other law violations, and some of them were fomenting terroristic views. According to who? I don't know. Whoever makes that decision. But 6,000? Can you believe that 6,000 students are being shipped home for bad behavior? 6,000. That's a lot. Wow. I would guess their violations were not big ones. And I don't know what percentage of them are just student visa overstays. That would be the lowest level of crime, I guess, would be overstaying your visa. But if you do, you got to go home. Well, the FDA has greenlit a new lab-grown salmon. So it's going to look like a salmon and maybe taste like it, but it would be made out of cells that they grew in a lab, and then they added some vegetable stuff to it and made it taste right. According to the Smithsonian Magazine. And so we may have the first lab-grown cultured fish. Now, here's the weird thing. I'm a pescatarian, so I eat fish. I don't love it. In fact, I don't really like any fish, but I eat them because protein. Um, but even I'm grossed out by this lab-grown meat. You would think that I would be more grossed out by the thought of eating a dead animal or dead fish. But eating a dead fish, for whatever reason, feels more palatable than this lab-grown Frankenfish monstrosity. But I'm sure it's fine. So here's a real story. Yesterday, I said to myself, I'm not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to order a steak on DoorDash because I don't want to have to prepare it. And I'm going to buy a steak, and then maybe I'll change my mind and not eat it. I haven't eaten steak in, I don't know, 40 years, a long time, about 40 years, I guess. And I thought, well, I just won't tell anybody because then if I change my mind, I don't have to explain it. But, you know, so I go to DoorDash and I start shopping for a steak. Do you know what a steak costs? Oh my God. The steaks locally were $54 just for the steak. If you wanted something on the side or a beverage, well, that's more. And then you've got the delivery fee, and then you got the tip. And I'm thinking to myself, am I really going to pay, I don't know, $150 for a steak or whatever it was when you add everything in, maybe $100 for a steak. And I actually changed my mind because if I liked it, I didn't want to spend $54 every time I ate. So I'm doing okay financially. Like I don't have any, money problems. But even I wouldn't buy a $54 steak. Do any of you buy $54 steaks? Is it only because it was on DoorDash? Now, I understand that it would be cheaper if you buy your own cut of meat and cook it at home and stuff, but I had no idea that a steak was that expensive now. I knew the price was up, but my God, $54 for a steak? Incredible. Well, Trump is going all Don Quixote on the windmills in New Jersey. Says they're not dependable and they raise the electricity prices, and he wants to get rid of windmills. Do you think that's another one of those 80-20? I don't know if it's 80-20, but I feel like most people, even if they're green, they like green stuff, they probably think the windmills are not the best way to get there. So I feel like Trump has yet again save the whales, save the birds. Don't kill the whales, don't kill the birds. It's ugly. Get rid of these windmills. So I think he picked another winning topic, as he does. A lot of you hate windmills. I know. I've heard from you. All right. It's a slow-ish news day until Trump wakes up and starts creating some excitement. Yeah, I'm watching Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. If you haven't seen that show, Landman, oh my God, is that well done? The acting, the casting, the writing, the concept, of the people they put together for their, it's really good. It's like one of the best things you'll ever see. They do have at least 2 scenes where somebody is tied to a chair and tortured. I don't love that, but it was so good that I didn't turn it off because I have a rule. As soon as the movie puts somebody in a chair, ties them to a chair to torture them, as soon as that happens, I turn it off and I will never watch the rest of that movie. But Landman was so good. I was flexible on that rule. All right. Landman, I believe, is on Prime Video. Only Prime Video, I think. I'm not 100% sure. One of my biggest problems is I have a number of streaming services. Well, it's not my biggest problem, but it's a pain in the ass. And I'll start watching something and I'll like it, and then I'll never be able to find it again. Has anybody had that problem? I'll be like, was that on HBO Max? Then you spend 10 minutes looking, it's not. Okay, I think it was on Netflix. Spend 10 minutes looking, it's not. And you're like, okay, I've been here 20 minutes. I only had 20 minutes to watch a show. I'm done. All right. It's so hard to find anything to watch, especially even if you've started it. Yeah, trying to navigate to the Paramount stuff from where you are, it's tough. All right, I'm going to say hi to my beloved subscribers on Locals. The rest of you, I'm hoping to see you tomorrow, same time, same place, for more fun. But right now, we'll update the stream, and if this works,